Hi guys, I'm Amy. Welcome back to my channel. Today is March 8th, which is International Women's Day, so I thought that I would put together a list of books written by women about women in which I can recommend to you guys as the perfect reads for International Women's Day. So if you guys are looking for some books that have some really awesome female characters written by some really awesome females, then go ahead and keep on watching. We're gonna go ahead and start with an old-time favorite of mine back from when I was very, very young, and we're gonna talk about Felicity. Felicity was, of course, an American girl from the American Girl Company, and particularly Felicity is from the Revolution, 1776, and I just wanted to mention these because, one, it's middle grade March, and this would be a great pick, and two, Felicity's just a really, really strong character, and she does things that are really hard for her to do, but she does them because she believes that's what's right. And so I think it's the perfect middle grade series. Really, any American Girl series I feel as I can vouch for being perfect to read this month, but Felicity was my personal favorite. And I have a book, several books on this list actually, that were on my favorite books of 2018, so you're gonna hear me talk about them more than once, but I think it's because you should read them. And the first is What Should Be Wild by Julia Fine. If there's any book on this list that I really desperately want you to read, I think it's this one, because in this story we are following Maisie, who has this really incredible ability that if she touches you and you're alive, you'll die, and vice versa if you're dead. So she'll bring you back to life. But what I think is really the truly beautiful part of this story is the fact that we follow the history, or the ancestors, 5 in particular, of Maisie, that all women, of course, that don't do what's expected of them, and the repercussions of that. So I highly recommend this book. Number one, it's beautiful. Number two, it's just a really, really fascinating look at women and their roles and everything that kind of is in that realm. And this next one I wanted to mention, well, here. It's The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, but the reason I wanted to mention this book is because there are 2 characters in this book. We are following a set of sisters, an older sister who's living in occupied France, and she's housing a Nazi soldier in her home, and her husband is a prisoner of war, I believe, and so she's one character we're following, and then the other character is her younger sister, who takes an active, explicit role in the resistance against the Axis. And what I think is amazing is that this story beautifully captures the many different ways that women can be brave and the different roles that they take on. And I love that both the explicit, direct action is in this book, but also the more subtle bravery involved in this book, and it's a really gorgeous story, and if you haven't read it, you definitely should. I also felt that this next book really needed to be on this list, because it just celebrates so many incredible things about women, and that is The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy by Mackenzie Lee, the much beloved sequel to The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. And in this story, we're following Felicity Montague, who wants nothing more in her life than to be a doctor. But we are currently in the 1700s in Europe, where no one is okay with that. No one wants that to happen. And so this is about Felicity attempting to find her space in the world and not apologizing for it. But what I also love about this story is how beautifully it captures the nuances and complexities of female friendships and celebrates those friendships. And there is an interesting discussion of sexuality in this book. And if you haven't read this book, or Gentleman's Guide for that matter, you really should pick them up. Whether you're a YA reader or not, they're just a lot of fun, but so beautifully done and handles so many complex, hot topics in such a really, really successful way. And if you didn't think I was going to include this next book, who are you and why do you watch my channel? The Butcher's Hook by Janet Ellis. I'm not going to go into what it is about, but I couldn't not include it because this female, Anne, in Georgian London, literally goes to the most insane extremes to not do what she doesn't want to do. And it's the writing, the prose, it's gorgeous, it's visceral and evocative, and Anne is an absolutely fascinating female because she just is who she is, and there's no one that is ever going to change that. And it was a very refreshing character to read about. So again, I'm going to recommend The Butcher's Hook. I also wanted to include a classic on this list, which there's many that you could choose from, but I'm gonna go with Middlemarch by George Eliot. One, I just recently finished it, and two, what I really found interesting about this brick of a book, if I'm being honest with you, is there's a wide cast of characters in this story, but some of our main characters are these women who are in these marriages, and it's about how they handle marriage and how marriage is so very different from what they thought it was going to be. And sometimes they handle it gracefully and other times they don't. And it's about what they do to be true to themselves and how they grow as people. This isn't an overtly feminist book, but I think there's a lot of really awesome commentary about what it was and what it meant to be a female in this time and their roles in society and their marriages. And it really is a really big book. And if you are willing to sit down and work your way through it, I think you will not be disappointed. Another book on this list that just wasn't gonna not be on it is, of course, by my queen, Tamara Pierce, and I'm going to specifically talk about The Lioness Quartet. This is the first book, Alana, The First Adventure, Song of the Lioness, and this is I would say it starts out as a middle grade series, but does ratchet up to more YA content later on as Alana ages and grows. And this is about Alana, who at the beginning of this book, I think she's about 10 to 12. She's preparing to be sent to a convent, I believe, to be a part of the church, whereas her twin brother is being sent away to be a knight, but they decide to switch places. And so Alana dresses up as a boy and pretends to be a boy so that she can do the one thing she's always wanted to do, which is become a knight. And this is the first book in the overarching kingdom of Tortall that just introduces you to so many fascinating, strong, brave female characters that you just got to start here and then just keep going with the series. I will never walk away from these books because she just so beautifully captures what it means to be a girl and all the changes you go through, let alone in a time when you are trying to hide what your true identity is. So if you haven't picked these up and you're looking for a fun but still very thoughtful, challenging your ways of thinking type of read, definitely go to this one. As for an adult fantasy, I have for you The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this book, and again, this is not an overtly feminist text, but what I think is really great about our main character Vasilisa is that she so firmly believes what she knows to be true to who she is and her culture, that nothing's going to stand in her way in order for her to take care of her and her own. And I also think in the same way you could look at her stepmother that way. Her father, Vasilisa's father, remarries a city woman, a woman from the city, and that woman very much upends the lives of Vasilisa and her siblings and the village in which they live in Russia, which is high north, very deep north. Is that a more appropriate way to describe that? I'm not sure. Regardless, this book is a very slow burn, but in the end it builds up beautifully. I have not continued with the series. I need to do so, but if you're looking for a really awesome female character, look no further than Vasilisa. The second book from my favorites list of 2018 is, of course, The Signature of All Things by Elizabeth Gilbert. In this story, we are following Alma Whitaker throughout her entire life, from the day she is born to the day she dies. And Alma Whitaker does things in her own way and to her own beat of her own drum, and no one really changes that. And she struggles with that at times and finding out who she is. She's born to a very wealthy family, and has a, I don't want to say stepsister, like an adopted sister that is pretty much the antithesis of who she is. But Alma Whitaker is interested in science and how the world works and really doesn't know what to do in the realm of romance. And really, Gilbert in this story weaves a very fantasy, fairy tale-esque vibe that I just couldn't help but soak up. The prose, again, is absolutely stunning, and it's detailed and beautiful. I just felt like Gilbert knew these characters. She knew every single bit about them, whether or not it was included in these texts, and I love seeing that in a book. And if, again, a slow burn on this one, but it's such a beautiful story, and Alma Whitaker is a fascinating character that needs to be read by more people. And the last and one of the more recent reads of mine from this list I have is Margaret the First by Danielle Dutton. This might be a bit of an obvious choice, but I just, again, I couldn't feel okay with leaving her off this list. Margaret Cavendish is such a character that Danielle Dutton brings to life in such an incredible way, but not in a way that romanticizes who she was as a person. Margaret the First was not a perfect being, and she knew that about herself, but just kind of brazenly went forward with her life, and she's one of the first women to be accepted into the Royal Society of London. And there wasn't another woman admitted for another 200 years. So she really was a front runner in our time as a feminist and just doing her own thing. And it's a very tiny little book, and again, gorgeously written and well worth your time. Alrighty guys, there you have it. There are some really awesome books written by women, about women. I seem to have a love of those type of books. That doesn't come as a shock to anyone, but it was really fun to pick these out. If you guys have read any of these yourselves, let me know what you thought of them. And of course, if you have any recommendations for me about some really awesome female characters written by really awesome women, then please not link those, tell me down below in the comments. I guess you could link them as well if you'd like. But if you guys like this video, please like it. And if you loved it, please subscribe, and we will see you in my next video. Happy reading!